Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Panelists, thank you so much for being here. If it's okay with everyone, let's go ahead and get started, and then we'll allow people to trickle in as their schedules permit. Welcome to Charter Day, to Excelsior's Volunteering Week, and to our Volunteering Week panel. Everyone, it's wonderful to have you all with us this afternoon. Excelsior University, the Community Engagement Group, the Center for Social Justice, and the Excelsior University Rope teams are thrilled to be hosting a panel of amazing internal and external leaders of our community as part of Excelsior's participation in this year's Volunteering Week. So welcome, panelists. We're thrilled about our partnership with you and your organization, and we're honored to have each of you with us today. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Now, before I have the opportunity of introducing the panel and learning more about your volunteering and community engagement leadership, experience, and insight, I have the privilege of sharing the microphone with Dr. David Scable, President of Excelsior University, who has kindly offered to share a few words about volunteering and Volunteering Week. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Daniel. First of all, welcome everybody, and thank you for being here. Volunteering Week is a week-long celebration in April that recognizes and promotes the impact of volunteerism on communities. During this week, organizations like Excelsior and individuals in the community come together to participate in volunteer activities, share their experiences, and inspire others to get involved. It's an opportunity to showcase the diverse range of volunteer work, from mentorship and education to environmental conservation and social justice. Volunteer Week aims to encourage people to give their time, skills, and passion to make a positive difference in their communities and the lives of others, and to recognize the valuable contributions that volunteers make to society throughout the year. Volunteering Week raises awareness of the power of volunteering and its ability to bring people together and create positive change. Today's panel will focus on the value and meaning of volunteering and community engagement. In her TED Talk, Rethinking Volunteering, Mary Zhu shares how, although 90% of people express interest in volunteering, only 25% end up doing so. She argues that a main reason for this gap is that volunteering is often perceived as charity or as a sacrifice of money or time that separates doing good work from working towards our goals. Could we redefine volunteerism to see these two needs as interconnected and as an opportunity to contribute to the empowerment of our communities by pursuing our passions, thus sharing what Mary Zhu calls our comparative advantage in our environments? As we celebrate and participate in Volunteering Week, let's reflect on the value and power of volunteering and the opportunity to do so meaningfully. So thank you, Daniel. I'll give up my seat for you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right. And also, before we begin our panel, I want to thank a number of people and units that made today possible, starting with Zach, Kristen, and the entire community engagement group for your amazing ongoing leadership and inspiration. It's really wonderful to see you do your work. I also want to thank Jamie and Sarah from development, Linda, Maria, Nyla, and Nick from marketing, Aaron, Jason, and Connor from communications, Chris, and all the ITS team who's here with us today, Jill, all the facilities team, our president, David, of course, and Pam from the Center for Social Justice. And thank you for all your amazing partnership and support to make today happen. So now we are thrilled to get started with our feature panel. We are honored by each of our guests' presence today. Our Volunteering Week panelists include Kim Felon, Senior Vice President and Senior Relationship Manager at M&T Bank. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Paul Stewart, co-founder of the Underground Railroad Education Center. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure to have you. Rich Hurley, Assistant Principal of Troy High School. Thank you so much for your time, Rich. Kristen Miller, Co-Chair of the Excelsior University Community Engagement Group. Thank you for being here. And I have the privilege of co-moderating the panel with Pam Jimenez, Program Director of the Center for Social Justice, and I am Daniel Pasco Aguilar. I'm Founding Director of the Center for Social Justice and Chief Diversity Officer. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Be aware that some of the questions will come from the side, as Pam and I intermittently ask questions, and that we have an audience online as well. So we could get started by asking each of you to please introduce yourself and share a little about you and or your organization's overall experience with volunteering or community engagement. In any order you want.
Start with me. My name is Kim Fallon. I'm a senior vice president at M&T Bank. I've worked at M&T for 25 years. I've been in banking for 35 years, believe it or not. I specialize in not-for-profit banking and lending. So I am delighted to say that I work with many, many not-for-profits in the Capital District. And I love what I do. And the bank loves being in this space. Aside from that, I sit on many boards in the Capital District, for which M&T, I'm proud to say, allows each employee 40 hours per year to volunteer on bank time. So that speaks volumes to M&T's community involvement and the fact that we believe very, very strongly in community.
Paul Stewart is my name, and I am a co-founder and co-director of the Underground Railroad Education Center, which is a nonprofit organization which originally started as a personal research project of my wife and I in trying to answer the question, what's the story of the Underground Railroad in our local community? Quite interestingly, we were told by many that we couldn't find anything, whatever. So anyway, we found a lot of stuff. In terms of volunteering, I know for myself, I kind of think, I was just thinking about this, like how far back does it go for me in terms of personally volunteering, but then also using volunteering as a way to accomplish community goals. And I tracked it all the way back to grade school, which I thought was incredible. We had a little thing we called Citizens for a Better Society, and we made up some newsletter head, which we got from a printing company, and we did our own little newsletter. So it's like just 2 or 3 kids, trying to do something to make the world better, and that sort of kept up. And so now, as in my role in connection with the Underground Railroad Education Center, which I kind of consider to be a way that I invest in my community, not only do we use our skills to bring together the nuts and bolts of what it is to make the thing run, but then we also make connections with things like Excelsior University and the other colleges and universities in the area, the schools in the area, to help mobilize volunteers to be able to accomplish the goals that we certainly couldn't do by ourselves.
Hello, I'm Richard Hurley. I work at Troy High School as an administrator. I've been in education for 20 some odd years. I started out working in colleges, and then I was at Bishop McGinn High School, a private school, for 13, 14 years, and now my 13th year at Troy. So that's all I've done is been in schools, working with the school communities, which is where we're located. I've done a lot of partnership. Well, one we have with Excelsior. They do a great job with us with one of their food programs, and kind of very similar. I think back to when did I start? Again, for me, volunteering as a young child. It's kind of how I was brought up. I think a lot of it has to go back to your roots, with your parents and your family. And I was a private school kid growing up, and remember, being an altar boy, when I was younger. And, and that went into then playing a lot of sports. And for the last 12 years, I've been a coach in, Little League, to youth basketball, to running camps, and just opening up to the communities, giving the young people, male, females, opportunities to come in and play basketball and play baseball because that's what was done for me when I was a kid. And I think that's very important. And as I work in schools, that's a lot of the things that I don't see happening as much as it should be. I see our youth of today not having the volunteers that I had when I was growing up. And that's why I like to do what I do, to provide these young kids of today an opportunity that I had, whether it's a couple hours a day or 3, 4 hours a week, whatever it may be. That's why I work in schools and have stayed there, and just youth is important to me, and making sure that our youth of today have some vision and have some structure.
Hi, I'm Kristen Miller. I am an employee of Excelsior University. I've been here for 6 years. I am also the co-chair of the community engagement group, so I do a lot of volunteering and helping to bring volunteer opportunities to the Excelsior community. I started volunteering, I can't remember if it was middle school or high school. Started with a group called Yonkers, where we focused on the history of New York, which was a very weird group for me to be in, because if you know me, I don't do history. But the community engagement focus of it was really what I was interested in, and it's grown from there. I was immediately drawn to join the community engagement group. That was one of the first organizations I joined when I became an employee here, and my involvement has only grown. And I just love working with the volunteer opportunities and growing the community engagement group and seeing, the impact that we can accomplish.
Thank you for sharing. Pam, do you want to ask the next question?
Pardon my voice. From your perspective, what is the value and meaning of volunteering?
Well, I think that you ask from my perspective. So, I mean, it kind of in an objective way, it means different things to different people. For me, I think I mentioned before something about it being part of my way of investing in the community. A lot of times people want to they want to be philanthropic. They want to make a change in the world, but they think to themselves, well, I don't have the money to do that. And I don't have the money to do that either, but I have time, and my time and my talents are a huge asset to be able to make change in the world. So I can step forward and volunteer. I've learned that there are some things that I have done more at than maybe other things in terms of volunteering. So in not-for-profit organizations and kind of the social organization of it, maybe some of the nuts and bolts of the nonprofit organization. A lot of times when I see other folks doing things, maybe they don't have a good sense of that, and I can bring that to the table. So my volunteering is a way of investing and helping and boosting and bringing things forward. So
Thank you.
I always worry about myself and my kids. I have 2 daughters, that we live in our little bubble and we think our world is everybody's world. And I think the one thing that you can appreciate if you are volunteering or you're outside of your bubble or you're seeing something from somebody else's perspective, it just makes you a better human being, right? So you're a little more forgiving, you're a little more understanding, you're probably more likely to pay it forward, or at least listen to somebody or smile at somebody or offer something that they might not have, that you may have too much of. But I think we all need a little bit more of this. And, as Paul said, it doesn't cost, you don't have to open your checkbook. You don't have to give up your kids' college education. You can give of your time, which I think is very generous if you give of your time or you give of your talent. And that, to me, again, I'm on a couple of boards, and people are always concerned, like, I don't have the money to write. You know what? You give what you can and you give, what suits you. But I'm more concerned, I'm more happy if you can give whatever time and talent that you have, but be our ambassador. Like, tell the story of the not-for-profit to 3 of your best friends, and you're doing justice for the not-for-profit. Because as many of you know, a lot of these smaller organizations don't have huge budgets, don't have an unlimited staff. So some just grunt work, some thoughtful work that everybody can do truly goes a long way. So I would just think about that.
I mean, for me, I just love seeing the joy of the person who's receiving what we're giving. I don't come from a lot, but I do have time. And then, to see someone you helped out maybe 10, 12 years ago, I just think of something happened to me last month. I was walking in the gymnasium and I had like 3 or 4, young kids came up to me and, they were like, "Hey, Mr. Hurley, you remember, 5, 6 years ago at this camp you run?" And you look at them now and they're 16, 17 years old, and you ask them what they're doing. And the fact that they remember just that time that you spent with them and you gave them an opportunity to, whatever it was, that's just, again, that's just kind of why I do what I do. And I think it's great for the community. And if you can affect one child or 10, 15, it makes you feel good. And that's why, what volunteering means to me.
Thank you.
All right. So, Chris, could we show the video as a precursor to the next question? So we'll watch just a clip of a TED Talk by Mary Sue, and then we'll talk about it.
A lot of creative ways to volunteer remain undiscovered. To make matters worse, an estimated 1/3 of nonprofits around the world will close this year due to the pandemic, further limiting the number of established volunteer opportunities out there. In a world where volunteers are needed more than ever, we must rethink volunteerism by first changing our individual mindsets and then working together to catalyze a systemic change. In an ideal world, charity should be seen as an exciting opportunity to help someone in need by doing something you love. It should be a positive two-way relationship that is meaningful and valuable for both the beneficiary and the benefactor. When volunteers are matched to effective roles that bring a sense of fulfillment through an appropriate match of skills, the positive effects are channeled to the beneficiary and then right back to the volunteer. This cycle is powerful. Not only is it longer lasting, inspiring experiences are likely to rein in and empower new volunteers. The solution starts with something we all have: comparative advantage. Is there a way you can serve others through your passion? For some people, the answer to this question is easy. For example, if you're passionate about cooking, there are countless soup kitchens that serve meals to those in need. But what if your passion is something much more out of the box? It's uncommon knowledge that there actually exists very unconventional ways to volunteer out there. If you
All right, so if I could ask our panelists, and everyone start thinking of questions you might want to ask or comments you might want to make, and we will open it up for an interaction between the audience and the panel in a few minutes. But what is your reaction to Mary Sue's recommendation to move from perceiving volunteering as charity to volunteering our passions, goals, or skills in our communities? It's not working.
Oh, yours isn't.
Oh, sorry. I was like, what is Paul trying to tell me? I don't know. Do I need to ask the question again? Or yeah, so sorry, people virtually. I got distracted. But I'm asking panelists, what is their reaction to Mary Sue's recommendation to move from perceiving volunteering as charity of time or money to volunteering our passions, goals, and skills in our communities?
I guess I'm a dive in. Yeah, there's 2 things there. One is yes, there's a lot that volunteering does for me. and does for all of us. And what I found interesting in that video clip was it helped bring me back in my mind to when I was a college student. You know, like now I can say, well, I'm volunteering because I'm investing in the community. Well, when I was a college student, I didn't feel like I had those skills. But I knew that I had the time, and I knew that I could make a difference just as me. So showing up was 9/10 of the work. Volunteering for something specific, like whether it was being an officer of the organization and doing that role, or whether it was some other activity, it made me feel good. I met new people, often had new experiences that I wouldn't have had if I didn't volunteer. So it did a lot for me, as well as me bringing something to the table.
So for me, when I saw that, a lot of us find jobs that we love, but not necessarily our dream jobs. You know, I dream of being, or I dreamt of being a photographer, but it's a very hard market to get into. And it doesn't necessarily pay the bills. You know, you can be very lucky to find your dream job, especially in the arts, but you can volunteer and you can live in that world for a small period of time and use your passions for the benefit of others. So you can, you know, find ways to use what you dreamed of to, you know, live in that world and not necessarily work in that world. You know, there are people who dream of being parents, but they can't have children. So they foster, they use their passions, their dreams for the benefit of others. So I really like, you know, I really liked her point that we can use that. And I think it might be hard for people not to think of that as a selfish thing. Like people have this perception that, you know, it may volunteering is an atonement for having more than other people. And that's not necessarily what it is. We can use our skills, we can use our passions, we can use our dreams. We can, you know, we want to learn about something, we can go find a volunteer opportunity that teaches us a new skill so that we can use it. It's still helping people, but it's helping us also. It can be a codependent relationship. Um, and, you know, if there's goals and skills you want to pursue, you can find volunteer opportunities to help you grow in that area. And it doesn't have to be sacrifice or penance for that perceived charmed life that people seem to think it is. It can be fun. It can be a pursuit of our passions and be benevolent.
Well, I'm going to put my hat right now from banker to not-for-profit president, because I'm a president of a certain arboretum in the area, which I hope everybody gets to. But anyways. So when we set up a volunteer event, I always want to make sure that we're giving you something meaningful, a use of your time. I don't want to have 15 people on site for 4 hours to do an hour worth of work. You know, that gets everybody mad that we have too many people there, and we didn't really, you know, we need to have a true demand. We need to make really good use of your time. And more importantly, tell you more about the organization so you can understand the why, right? We have you on site for whatever the time. You're our new ambassador, right? And by the way, let's break these trails. We could really use your help. And by the way, if you want to come back next week, bring your family and your friends and your whole neighborhood, right? So we always want to make sure that we don't undermine the value of folks' time, and that you understand the why. And hopefully you like what you're doing and you like the organization, and you'll spread the word and then come back and help us again. So that's just a different perspective, I guess, on that answer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I watched this last week, when Zach gave me the homework, I realized that well, first I didn't know what comparative advantage really was until I watched it. And then I realized that all my volunteer was only what I was good at. And it made me think like, man, there's so many other things that I probably could be doing that I'm not doing, and kind of asked myself, you know, why? And then it came back to, well, the time, you know, you got family, you have your kids, you got work, you have all your stuff. But it really made me really kind of reevaluate, you know, that I have to do more and I can do better. and kind of come out of my comfort zone a little bit, kind of what you mentioned earlier. Doing this is not in my comfort zone, I'll be honest with you. But so that was it was good. And you know, and now as I have, you know, my 10th grade son is his confirmation is actually Saturday, and I went back to all the volunteer stuff that he had to do, and he'd wake up in the morning, Dad, I got to go do this for 5 hours, 4 hours, and I'm like, yes, you do, and you have to do it, and we're driving you, and I don't care. He's complaining all the way where he's got to go to, and then when he come home, he would say, you know, that wasn't that bad, that was good, and I, you know, and you know, so that's just, I kind of, you know, it was good, it was full circle, you know, for my family, and also making sure that I got to do a better job as I, you know, can probably go out and branch out a little more.
Thank you. Pam?
From your experience, what is the biggest reward that you've gotten from volunteering? Especially when it's something like this today that makes you uncomfortable sometimes.
I mean, again, I think I mentioned it earlier. I mean, obviously, most of my volunteerism is through, you know, I get paid to work at the school. You know, we do so many more jobs than that comes under, as you all do here, I'm sure, you know, in your job title. And, you know, just, you know, when we adopt families for the holidays, and, you know, you ask your faculty and your staff, you know, who are the students that could really need something, or you have a student that gets in a house fire and they lose everything, and to watch us all come together as a school, as a community, reaching our outside resources, and giving something to that family to make that student feel like, you know, hey, for at least for today, I feel good, and people care about me, and that is just an awesome feeling for me. You know, we do food drives around Thanksgiving, and we, you know, get a bunch of meals for 35, 40, 50 families in our school district. And then you interact with the elementary schools and the middle schools. And then when you all come together and you say, you know, we fed over 250 families in our, you know, in the city of Troy, and they write you an email, or they, you know, or they thank you a month later with a card. And that's the stuff that I love, and keeps you going, you know, makes you come back to school. You know, you have your tough days, but those are the ones that get you through, you know, and makes you feel like, you know, people do know, and they do, you know, recognize what you're doing for them.
I feel like the more that I volunteered over the years, it just helps me create such a huge network of people within the community, and not just necessarily for my benefit, but you know, I get calls constantly about, we need this, or I have this, I'm cleaning out books. My house is like the drop off point for everything, and I am the queen of recycling. Like, somebody will always need whatever. Do not put it in the garbage. So I love that. I love that we can, you know, reduce, reuse, and recycle. But more importantly than that, help somebody else out that doesn't have this. And, you know, my favorite thing, you know, I'll be in Price Chopper Sunday morning and clearly do not look like this. And, you know, I'll get stopped by somebody that I did a loan for 20 years ago. And, you know, it's just a good feeling that people remember you. Like, there's that saying, like, you know, people may not necessarily remember, you know, your name or what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel, or something that you did. So you'd be surprised what an act that you don't think is that big really has a huge impact on somebody. So never underestimate that.
Thank you.
That's an interesting question, and it really made me think about my volunteer experiences. I've volunteered doing a lot of different things in my life, like a lot of political work campaigns, working for people, you know, just putting my time in to help somebody get elected, or, you know, some votes for this or that cause. I've you know, worked out in in forests, you know, doing trail work and things like that. But the thing that really probably hit me the most deeply was when in the course of a course that I took, I volunteered to help out some people that were disabled, not able to walk or speak properly, or really express themselves. And I made a commitment to be this one person's friend for a period of time. And well, actually, for a period of time from that time that I met them till the time that they passed away. And that to me, it was that, showing up for them from time to time and spending time with them, in a sense, being embarrassed by them because they couldn't talk. So they had to, figure out how to communicate with me somehow. Uh, you know, um, Taking them to places, trying to give them a piece of normal life. That I think to me was the thing that hit me most deeply.
For me, it's just doing it. I like to go to opportunities that are outside of my comfort zone, and actually see it through. I've done opportunities where I'm lifting heavy things and especially since having my child, I'm not in the greatest shape. So seeing it through and not giving up, going to outdoor events where, there's bugs. I'm a big insectophobe, and not running away going, no, I'm not going in there. There's spiders. So, on top of, seeing the impact of people coming to you and saying, you know, we get to have Christmas this year because your organization delivered presents, and we can, obviously those moments really stick with you, but also being able to just do things that you didn't think you could because you're helping. I think I put myself out there a little bit more because I'm volunteering. Like, I'm going to do this because I'm helping other people.
Thank you. Let me add one of my thoughts about the video. I've been thinking a lot about Mary Sue's recommendation in my own personal life. And something that I found that is really interesting and powerful to me is that in order to identify one of the best ways in which one can contribute through our passions and skills, there's some research that needs to go along that, right? It's not only looking at my menu of options to volunteer, but rather what can I create? What can I co-create, right? By working with, so we're working on an opportunity with the Underground Railroad Education Center, but that then allows me to learn more about others. And to me, I think that one of the major issues we are facing as a society with the polarization of rhetoric and perspectives is that there's less and less of me exposing myself to differences and learning about other perspectives and experiences. So that research then can be enhanced by the experience itself. And how much can I actually learn? How can I be more aware of other experiences and perspectives? And then that changes one, right? It makes a difference in how we see the world and how we see reality, how we perceive ourselves, how we experience things ourselves. So to me, there's a significant value of us thinking different about volunteering, not only based on what we do, but how we are thinking of it, how we're co-creating it, rather than just looking at a menu of options. Pam, looking at the time, if it's okay, I'm going to jump to the penultimate question. Is that okay? What advice could you give the audience, those who are here now or virtually, or those who will consume this as a recording, as they prepare to engage or consider volunteering or facilitating community engagement opportunities?
So to go along with what we're talking about today, find opportunities that align with your interests and your passions. Find things, that you're good at or you're interested in. Find opportunities that, will align with those. Again, it's not meant to be a second job or atonement for having more. It's a way to show your love, your skills, yourself with the community. But also, I would recommend volunteering with friends or family, with a group. It's a way to get out there and have fun. I'm sure we've all heard the expression that many hands make light work. But I think that laughter lifts a lot more.
Like that.
Love it, yeah.
So I would say on that one, if you're getting involved in an organization, it's one thing to volunteer because that's, a couple-hour commitment. If you're looking to have a little more involvement, maybe sit on a committee. In terms of if you're going to be involved at a board level, first of all, figure out what the time commitment is, but more importantly, make sure it's a good fit. If you're going to be sitting in a meeting or listening to what the organization is doing or not doing, make sure you love them, like the mission, love the mission, want to make a difference with the mission. At M&T, we have a lot of, we're all required. They like us to get involved, whatever that looks like, be involved at a board level if that's the right fit for us. So we have a lot of younger folks that have joined the bank throughout COVID, kind of, in their 20-year range, kind of in their 20s. And they don't even know where to start. They don't know which board is right for them. They don't know what that good fit is, so you kind of need to feel what's good in your heart. Is it kids? Is it education? Is it outdoors? Is it health? Is it whatever the calling may be? There is no shortage of not-for-profits in this area. There's way too many not-for-profits, I'll admit. And, there's not enough people to go around, but to really make sure that you like your participation, if it's more than just a volunteer level on a one-off basis, just make sure it's a good fit and make sure that your heart is in it. And if it's not, I've been on a board or two where after a couple board meetings, I'm like, you know what, I'm not, maybe it's just a fundraising board. I'm not good at fundraising. I don't want to, bang on doors and ask for money. I can do it in other ways to get people attracted to the organization, but, just make sure it's the right fit, I guess.
Yeah, this idea of a right fit, I think, is important. The need is huge, and I think people should be willing to think of ways that they can be helpful to an organization that's not necessarily in that space. And what I mean by that is, like, for instance, we have a project going right now where we have a challenging financial need. And we have some people who called us up and said, well, we'd like to have a fundraising party for you. So they're not, maybe they've been to our site once, but in this case, they're not going to be coming to our site. Actually, they're going to be inviting us out to their home or somebody else's home. And they're going to be gathering friends. And so it's going to be different in the sense that it's not something where they come to our site and do something that we direct them to do. But it's very much going to be something that's going to be helpful, so that I'm sure there are many creative ways of being helpful to the various causes or not-for-profit groups or volunteer opportunities that people may be drawn to. And people do need to be creative in terms of thinking about how to engage those things.
I just echo everything that they said. I think the great fit is big. I've been in a couple of spots as well where you're all excited to do it, and then you get in there and you're kind of dreading it. But you fulfill your engagement, and it's kind of like I tell some of our senior students at school, you do internships we have a great internship program that we have at Troy, and sometimes students come back to me and they say, "Man, I just didn't like that area, Mr. Hurley." And I say, "Well, now you know what, maybe you don't want to go study in college. So just embrace it, be passionate about it, and learn from it. And if it's not what you like this time, and maybe there's another opportunity that opens up down the line, and you kind of go that route." But I agree with everybody here.
Thank you. That was powerful. Well, so let's open it up for our audience today. If you have comments, questions.
Okay. I do have a question. It's mostly directed at Mr. Hurley, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but anybody can answer. But I'll give you a little, it's kind of a long-winded question. So, oh, I'm sorry. My name is Nan, and I'm the director of the Writing Center here at Excelsior. And I also work closely with Pam and Danielle in the Center for Social Justice on a lot of their various projects. My question is about the school system, and here's why. One of the things I was thinking about is all of us in this room, the idea of the spirit of volunteerism has a direct parallel to folks who are drawn to JEDI work or DEI work, in that you're sort of born with certain, or you're brought up, as you were all talking about, raised with certain values. And if you're lucky enough to be raised by a family that kind of includes in it volunteerism and charity and things like that, you grow up with that value. But like, how do we reach the folks who are less fortunate and who don't grow up with seeing that modeled and having it demonstrated for them? So my question is there a conversation among school administrators in terms of how to incorporate the value of volunteerism or the value of philanthropy among young folks who, even in Troy, kids who don't have as much as kids in, let's say, Bethlehem, anybody can still volunteer or help out in some way? Like, is there a conversation among the school administrators about how to cultivate that into the curriculum?
Well, I mean, we talk a lot about community engagement. That is one of our goals as a school board and as a, different as a high school. Like, I will tell you, at Troy, we hope they're not watching. We do not do a great job, I don't believe, at the high school level of community engagement, and getting our families involved more and understanding, how to help our kids, how we can work together to, not only academically, but there's a lot going out in our community, socially. Is it talked about? Sure. Do we brainstorm? Yes, all the time. I think it's on the board, and then you move on to other things and you turn around and it's still sitting there on the board. But it's something that, I mean, we have to do a better job of all that. And I think getting our communities and our families to work together. I think a lot of it is the families believe that we're working against their kids in some situations. For me, unfortunately, I deal with a lot of the discipline kind of stuff at the school. So I don't get a lot of the academic stuff behind, that's just not really what I do at the school. I'm more of a dean of students. So I get to talk to parents a lot about the community stuff, and why don't you come on in and let's talk about how we can help each other. Maybe there are things that I need to know from them that I can bring into the building to help our students. Sometimes that works great, and we have fantastic meetings about it, and we leave there and then we get a lot of information. And then there are times where it doesn't go well, and that's where we have to do a better job of offering more things at the school, bringing them in, and not just the typical open houses and meet the parent night, and stuff like that. Those are great, but everybody has those. It's how can we do more to get involved in the community, and be more of a hub in our school.
Yeah, I feel you, because I was a high school English teacher for 10 years, and I used to say to myself, am I really making a difference? If I really wanted to change, should I be a politician? Because I'm not made of the stuff of politics. I don't think I can do it.
I'll tell you,
But I just wanted to share one thing with you. In my other life, when I'm not doing academia, I teach martial arts to kids and to adults. And the one I teach is Japanese. And I always talk to the kids about how in Japan, there's this sort of fostering of the we versus the I. And when I was in graduate school, the thing that made me kind of fall in love with the idea of public education was I would read Alfred North Whitehead and John Dewey, and the whole thesis about why to have public school was not necessarily to educate, but to create involved citizens who feel a connection to their citizenry and to their fellow person. And we seem to have lost that over the years, not because anybody wanted to lose it, it just got changed over the years. And so I'm constantly thinking about how can we redesign our curricula so that just certain values are back in the classroom. And it's not that it's teachers' job to do everything. Obviously, parents need to do it too. But anyway, I was just curious about whether or not this is talked about among the school administrators. Yeah.
Talk about a lot of things. It's hard. I mean, we just came back off a 7-day break and we were off yesterday and today was what did the kids bring back in
Right.
from being off
Yeah.
from school for, this, and unfortunately they bring in a lot of their outside
Stress.
issues,
Yeah.
and you don't get to sit down. That's one of the things that I say when I go home every day is, I don't get to ask, how was your day today? Or,
Right.
it's a lot of problem solving. How do you get them through the day?
Mm.
But we do make a difference. We say that all the time
You do. I have a student who goes to your school, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what, I can say, because I have a ninth grader, I honestly feel like these kids are 14 and 15. That's when they can't get a job yet and they're itching to do something. So, and because we just had the guidance counselor thing with what do you want to do with your college career? And they handed me a piece of paper to track her hours. I'm like, really? I'm tracking her hours on a piece of paper? But we should get these kids when they're 14 and 15, when they've got enough up here and they've got all the energy in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And, get them then 14, 15, start this mentality on what they should be doing. So when they can go and get a job at Dunkin' Donuts, they'll at least know what it was like to, have a meaningful volunteer experience.
Thank you, Nan. Thank you, both of you. So any other comment or question? One and then come in.
Hi, Miles. I was wondering, it just seems that like in the past, several years with the increasing pace of social media and technology, things like that, it seems that like maybe part of this is the kind of the atomization of culture, and that how people are increasingly isolated and drawn into their own kind of world. And is there any value, and this is maybe just a crackpot theory, is there any value to just getting people in proximity of one another? Like, I feel like when I'm in a big group of people, there's like some muscle memory that kicks in. And you just sort of like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to be around a bunch of people and like, hey, let's do something, And is there any value to just getting bodies in the same room? Because I feel like a lot of kids especially don't. Like I've been in a room with like 15-year-olds and they'll be talking to each other, but not using words. Yeah. Texting, all of them, heads down, texting to each other in the same room. So I'm wondering if is there any value to like trying to get them into a room and like maybe take the devices away? But like, like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'll speak from a school perspective. We actually had a meeting about this right before break. A lot of schools are taking the phones away. We have a policy where we make them put them away in the classroom, and then if they don't, then we take it for the day, and then the second time the parent has to come in and take it, and it's tough. So I don't even know if I can again say this, but we're thinking about going to Yonder next year, where the kids have to get a Yonder pouch. They put their phone in the pouch for the day, locked up. They have it on them, but again, one of the studies that we showed is a picture of a cafeteria where there's 500 kids in a cafeteria for lunch, and 460 of them have their head down and they don't acknowledge anybody next to them. And a lot of school districts are going to that. There's a few in the capital region. We met with our superintendent last week about it. We have visited some schools, and we believe that would be something that would help young students engage better. I can tell you, when they're in my office, I have a spot for their phone because they want to stare at it like this, and I have to say to them, guys, we're having a conversation now. What's going on, and I have to put the phone over here, or they want to record it to make sure that what's being said is proper, or they want to be able to tell their parents. I'm like, no, I'm going to call your parent when we're done, let them know what's going on. But It's tough. It is very hard. We battle it every day with social media and the youth. And, you know, I want a yonder box at home because I have a 16-year-old now and a 12-year-old, and they now sell them now where you can get them at the house and lock it up. But it's tough. Social media it basically drives our school day, to be honest with you. It's awful. It's a nonstop issue.
Yeah, I got a thought. It's just, it seems like there's a thin line, and I don't know, as far as kids and social media, one of the things that, that I noticed as an older person is that, there was a moment when we all used to think, well, I can't figure this computer thing out. Let's get a kid to come in here. And what I found is that a lot of cases, kids don't know either, you know, which is like, oh, they're not as smart as they seem to be, you know. And the same thing goes for the phone. They're busy doing social media, like maybe like what, Snapchat or something like that. Instagram, maybe. No, that's not the wrong generation, right? But
Instagram Live now.
but they're all, you know, they're all like different things. And like I got here today using a Google app on my phone. You know, I get messages from people in other parts of the state on my phone. I've got calculators on my phone. I've got Excel on my phone. I've got, you know, and so my phone gets a lot of work that's different, and then it's not social media, but it's doing other work. And I sometimes will have that, you know, I'll be in a meeting and I'll go to look something up. I'll go to my, you know, to my email where that document was, and I'll find that document, search for it. And maybe I'll have to, you know, to look at it carefully so that I could better work in the conversation that I'm in. And you know, and my wife will poke me and say, "Get off your phone," you know. And I was like, "Well, yeah, but this is irrelevant to this conversation." So anyway, so it's a tricky thing, and I know that the kids are not where the older people are in terms of the productivity software on your phone, but maybe that's a mission that we can work on moving them from the chatty stuff to the real work. You know, I do think it's good as well. You know, I like the thought of just getting people together, but I'm not sure that specifically that's your random nonprofit's job. It is I think it's a school job, and I think it's a church job or a religious institution job. You know, when I think about places where I got together with other kids when I was growing up, it was in those kinds of settings, and I think that is they're all kind of on decline in many ways, and so maybe that's a place where somehow we could lend some support and get those institutions to pick up that slack that we're all feeling. Some thoughts.
So my thoughts are, when I think about technology, I think about being respectful. So if you're with somebody, don't, you know, the obvious stuff, don't pick up your phone and talk to them. If you're having a conversation, if you're having a meal with somebody, you know, realize what being rude is. And maybe kids need that more than anything. Cause, you know, I'm always banging my child over the head, like with what rude and respectful is. But I think it has no age is not a limit, right? I'll be in church and somebody's phone is going off and they're like 85 years old. No disrespect, but like, don't bring your phone in church. Okay. But those are the things that I think about with technology. And I always think that there is so much more power when we're together in person, and you can read somebody and feel like there's an issue or we need to discuss this a little more. You've just disengaged with me and there's an issue. Is there something you want to share? So I think to that extent, that's really important, why we should always be together. And, you know, the things that you hear that you wouldn't normally hear if you're remote, right? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I turned my phone off when I sat down here.
I think I think in terms of volunteering, there's definitely an energy when you're together. You know, I hear it from people who, when we arrange events, there's an energy. So getting people together is definitely part of it. Who's arranging it, that's to be seen. But as mentioned, it's got to be with a purpose. It's not just getting a bunch of people together in a room and seeing what happens. There has to be, a goal. There has to be a reason why we're together. And social media can be distracting, but it can also serve a purpose. It shares missions. It shares stories. It shares, volunteer opportunities. It shares what we're doing. So again, as Paul was saying, there's a fine line. We have to use technology. We have to use it responsibly. And, a lot of it is parents and teaching children how to use technology and how to use it responsibly and how not to be rude. And then it's bringing people together and bringing people together with guidelines. Don't use your phone when we're together so that we can feed off of that energy with each other. Put your phones away. Have a place to put your phone. Don't bring your phone in when we're volunteering, so it's got to be, a lot of different things when we're doing that.
Thank you, Jill, for reminding me to introduce myself. I'm Kamal Abdullah, and I work here at Excelsior. This has been great, but I want to make a point and ask a question. Volunteering pays off a lot, and in my own personal story, that's very true. I remember being a grad student at the College of St. Rose and not knowing what to do with my life, as it were, in an MBA program. And I'm sharing the story because I want to make a point about how educators make a difference. So shout out to the educators in the room. Is my department chair said, well, I know of an organization that maybe you can spend time with and that might help you out. And it turned out to be the Community Loan Fund where Paul worked. So Paul, I want to publicly thank you for getting me started on this journey. So where I am today has a lot to do with you. And I want to thank you for that. So so that's the point. Thank you, Paul. And then the question is that, when I think about volunteerism, there was definitely an audible reaction when you said M&T allows up to 40 hours. And I think, right? So
I don't want to get in trouble with Excelsior. We love Excelsior.
And I think it got all of us thinking, so I'm going to ask the question that we're probably all thinking about is what can we as employers and, stewards of the organization do to make it easy for people to do that? Because I have a feeling that there's definitely the commitment is there, but it's, time is a big resource that people struggle with. I like the idea of the 40 hours, but if there are any other ideas of what we can do as an employer to facilitate that, I think that'll be helpful.
So I'll just tell you a couple things that we have at M&T. So we have Workday, like everybody's on, a lot of people are on work. So that's a segment volunteer hours. So you put in for time off for your volunteer hours. And then we have a separate platform, and I have no idea what it is, but it lists the opportunity, how many people are needed, and it's a sign up system. And then it'll remind you that you've signed up for something, and it'll entail so that there's definitely a tracking mechanism, and we feel it's very important to track it. We get audited by a lot of different people, and one of our ratings is the CRA, right? So this goes into our CRA rating. But I think we would do it regardless of if we got points for it, because that's just what M&T is. We are a community-based bank, even though we're huge. We work in these little modules, which is ours is the Capital District. So I would, bring it to, management, see if you can it doesn't have to be 40 hours a year. It can be, case by case or whatever it is, but I do think it's important.
We have up to 7.5 hours, so we have the infrastructure. But what I liked about what you just said is a way to make it easy to prompt people that they've signed up for something and there's some sort of tracking. That seems to be a huge difference maker.
Well, incredibly, we have run out of time. This has been fantastic. Your leadership is inspiring. Your insight was really powerful. And we really, really appreciate the time that you have invested in me here with us today. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Please be in the lookout for a small token of our appreciation that we'll get to you. So we really appreciate you and your presence with us today. Thank you for joining us, and let's continue Charter Day.